Canadians feel about the United States being in 130 nations worldwide and having several active wars. We'd like to know what they would do to protect America first and to bring our boys home.
Mr. Osama.
First off, I think we should withdraw around the world. Nothing in the Constitution, the founders, the Federalist Papers state that we are a nation-building nation. We are not in the business of building nations. If somebody wants to have a democracy or a republic, they need to fight for that republic or that democracy the same way the United States people, the citizens of America did nearly 235 years ago. So yes, I'm in favor of withdrawing our troops. I'm not saying that I don't feel that we have a job in protecting the interests of the United States. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that their job is to protect the United States. Our troops are getting tired. I spoke to a young man just 2 days ago. He's getting ready for his 7th deployment to Afghanistan. We cannot continue to do this. Our troops cannot continue this pace. We are wearing them out. They are tired. Their equipment's getting worn out. We can successfully say that we succeeded in Afghanistan. Bin Laden's dead. So let's bring our boys home. As far as Iraq is concerned, they can fight for their own democracy. We do not need to be expending blood and treasure in Iraq for nothing in return.
Thank you. Amanda?
Congress needs to do what it is supposed to do, and that is exercise the power of the purse. If the President is not willing to comply with the War Powers Act, he deploys the troops worldwide. While Congress may have initiated and said that we've got troops around the world, I think the reality of it is we need to look at each and every one of those commitments that we have. When you look at the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, when you look at what we're doing in the Far East, where do those contribute to our national security interests? In many ways, we had a vested interest in being engaged in Europe when we had a Cold War going on. I do not believe the NATO alliance these days is serving our national interests any longer because it is a stable region of the world. When you look out to the Far East, what is China doing? Do we need to remain engaged out there? Do we need to have our troops in South Korea and in Japan? We can take a look at each one of those. When it comes to current operations, we are seeing the success in Iraq, and we can continue to draw down there, and I believe that we should. When it comes to Afghanistan, I'm a little bit more gun shy, and that is because you are seeing China in an arc through Pakistan, going all the way to Iran, and what they are doing. If we disengage from that region, we have to be careful that we are not inadvertently creating a vacuum by which the Chinese are going to create hegemony in the area, and that is going to jeopardize our national interests. By the same token, we as a nation need to look at where our troops are deployed and why, and determine how quickly can we start bringing them home without creating those vacuums and doing it. How does Congress do it? Exercise the power of the purse. If the President will not comply with the War Powers Act, the most recent example is Libya, then Congress needs to do what is it empowered to do, and that is cut off the funds. Within the Department of Defense, they have the ability to reprogram funds, not to continue fighting the war, but to do what's necessary to get those ships, aircraft, submarines, sailors, soldiers, airmen, Marines back here where they belong, safeguarding this nation.
Thank you. And Mr. Amodei.
Thanks. I think the first place you start is this. America's role in the world is much different than it was 100 years ago, 10 years ago, since speak softly but carry a big stick. The world has changed. The nuclear club is ever evolving. So when you talk about military involvements, when you talk about what we've experienced in the last 10 or 12 years in terms of people bringing very real threats and tragedies to our shores under the guise of whatever you want to call the motivations for that, I think it is appropriately time for a reevaluation. Libya is the most recent example of what was the entrance strategy, what was the objective, and what was the exit strategy. Can't figure any of that out. But I think when you talk about the Middle East, you have to say, is this something that requires a carrier air wing? Is it something that requires a Marine Expeditionary Unit? What does it require to deal with the fact that there are many nuclear players there now, and there will be more soon? once there are more soon in the form of Iran, then you have to ask yourself, who is that going to domino into? The Saudis will need it, other people in the area will need it. We have to stay engaged in an effective way that protects our interests, that was demonstrated to us in a very real sense on 9/11 and in other circumstances around the world. So to just say pull out or stay in, yes, the War Powers Act is very relevant, but it requires much more finesse now in that evaluation, because you do not want an escalation of what happened in 9/11 with the nuclear club growing nationwide, especially in the Middle East.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Sir?
Amanda, we'll start with you on this question.
Thank you. What is your position on developing our energy sources inside the United States, in particular our oil resources? And how do you feel about subsidizing other energy sources such as ethanol and our so-called green power, solar, geothermal, and so on?
I'll start with the back first. I do not believe that the government should be in the business of subsidizing energy sources. I believe that private industry is capable of doing it on their own. We should turn everything over to them. We don't need, as taxpayers, to be subsidizing what should be doing it. If the government were to subsidize anything, it is going to be subsidizing the technologies through research and development only, and then selling that to private industry to be able to recoup the funds and allowing them to do the development. When it comes to the energy sources, I go back to what I said originally. When you look at it today, what are the backbones that provide the power grid here in the United States? When you look at what energy is used, energy is used for really two reasons: transportation and electricity. Those are the two main things we use them for. Oil is used for the transportation. You have coal, natural gas, and nuclear energy that provides for electricity. All the alternative energy sources do not provide what is necessary to form a backbone. They can be contributors, and they should do that, and private industry should be doing it without government subsidies. I go back to what I said originally. When you look at nuclear power, when you look at what it can provide for clean, sustainable, safe energy for the future, that is where we should start developing here in the nation. We should start doing it more. That is why I think we should have Yucca Mountain, because if you're going to have more of those facilities, you're going to need a place where you can bring the fuel when it is finished being used in each of those. The per kilowatt hour that you're looking at is orders of magnitude lower. When you look at, for example, solar power, you're paying about 24 cents per kilowatt hour compared to 24 cents compared to 1.59 for nuclear energy. It is incredibly inexpensive, and that's why I believe that should be our future. We have it here in the United States. We don't have to rely on foreign sources, and we can begin to provide for ourselves here at home.
Thank you. Mr. Amodei.
Thanks, Trevor. Probably job 1A or 1AA is energy independence for a country that has the resources to achieve that. So when you talk about coal, when you talk about oil shale, when you talk about oil sands, when you talk about natural gas, it is possible to use those resources, which are here in America in abundance, in an environmentally and land use responsible manner. We should be maximizing our ability to explore for those, extract those, produce those, and put those into production for every appropriate energy use there is in this country. Because energy independence has ties to the economy, to national security, to natural resource utilization, and there's that thing about jobs. When you're doing all that stuff in America, that requires a lot of jobs, because nobody knows more than the people in this area from your experience with the precious metals industry. And the other thing I'll tell you is this: when it requires a subsidy for operations, that means it's probably not sustainable economically. Yes, we should be involved, Kurt is right, in terms of R&D, but if ultimately that doesn't get you to a place where you're not competitive for a kilowatt hour or for a gallon of petrol fuel, then you know what? A subsidy is a bad thing to do because it means you're not competitive. And as far as green power goes, I would submit to you that that is a politically correct term. There is either sustainable energy sources or there are those that are not sustainable. We've got plenty of ability to be our own sustainable resource masters of the future, and that should be something that we pursue with all due haste.
Thank you. This will wrap it up, Mr. Fasano.
First off, we have to exploit our own domestic resources of oil, natural gas, coal, and of course, nuclear energy. As far as oil is concerned, we have great reserves in this country, up in Anwar, on the Pacific coast, on the Atlantic coast, the Gulf of Mexico. But inside the continental United States, we have reserves inside of Oklahoma, Texas,